Okay, so we can call it the coordinate plane, or the coordinate grid, or the Cartesian grid, but we'll just say coordinate plane. So this is what it looks like. We have a grid system here, and the blue lines, one going up and down, this is called the y-axis. Goes up and down. See that? And left to right is the x-axis. So we have the y-axis and the x-axis. And we have a name in the middle. The one right in the middle is called the origin. I'll write it over here. The origin is that dot in the middle, 0, 0. So we can plot points, or we call them ordered pairs on the grid. We want to plot ordered pairs. So here's where another example here. Here's a grid with ordered pairs already plotted. There's an A, there's a C, there's a D, there's a B. And you see we have our x-axis and our y-axis. And we have quadrants. The quadrants go this way. This is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So it goes counterclockwise. You know, a clock, the dial of the clock goes this way. That's called clockwise. But on the coordinate grid or plane, it's going counterclockwise. So this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. So for this video, we'll just concentrate on quadrant 1. And quadrant 1, everything in quadrant 1 is all positive numbers. So if you look at this grid, you see numbers on the x, and you see numbers on the y. And the numbers in the quadrant 1 are all positive for x and all positive for y. We'll go over more of that. So let's look at another example, and let's see if we can find out where some of these plots are, these pairs are. Let's look at, again, this is just quadrant 1 now. This is just quadrant 1. We use the Roman numeral 1. So in quadrant 1, everything again is positive. Positive y and positive x. So it's important to know when we plot ordered pairs that the x comes first. When we plot this, we want to know the x number and then the y number. And I'll go over that. So let's look at A. Where would A be on the grid? Well, let's look at the x first. Remember, x comes first. It's right lined up with the 4 with the x and the 7 for the y. The 4 for the x, 7 for the y. So for A, if we wanted to plot what A was, it would be 4, 7. A is at 4, 7. Where would C be? See if you can find C. What would the ordered pair be for C? Okay, well, it's at the 9. It lines up with 9, so we know that C is already at 9 because X comes first. And what about the Y? Well, it lines up with the 3. Right, with the 3. So the pair would be 9, 3 for C. Let's do one more. Find F. Okay? It lines up with the 1 for the F, for the X line, and 3 for the Y. So F is at 1, 3. Okay, let's look at another grid. Now here we have some locations. What do you think the location of the school is? What would be the ordered pair of the school? See if you can do that. So again, the school, we want the X first. The X always comes first. And on the X line, on the X-axis, the school lines up with 4. So we know so far that the school will be at 4 for the X, but for the Y, it's at 2. So it would be 4, 2. And what about the library now? Now the library is not in quadrant 1. Remember, this is quadrant 1. This is quadrant 2. This is quadrant 3. And this will be quadrant 4. The library is in quadrant 2. And in quadrant 2, you can notice that the X's have negative numbers. The Y still has positive. So the library will be at negative 1 for the X. Lines up with negative 1. And 3 for the Y. Negative 1, 3. Now the skate park What about the skate park? It's also at negative, well, it's not in quadrant 2, it's actually right on the x-axis. So it's not in any quadrant. So the skate park is at negative 3 for the x, but it's on 0 for the y. So be careful for that. Now what if I put a point here? What's the quadrant for that point? Well, it's at 1 for the x and 2 for the y. So that'll be 1, 2. Now, how far is that point I just made from the school? Just count the units. It's 1, 2, 3. It's 3 to the right. So when we're using distances, we use the word units. Units just means 1. So, how far, let's put another dot here. What is the coordinate of that dot? What is the ordered pair for the dot I just made there? X comes first. It lines up with the 10 for the x and the 5 for the y. So it's at 10, 5. How far is that point from the home? How many units? Remember, don't count the first one. Don't count 1 as the dot. You gotta count the ones after. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 6 units to the left. 6 units to the left. Okay, let's do one more. I just made a dot there. What are the ordered pairs for that dot? Well, on the x, it's at negative 8. And for the y, it's at negative 3. Negative 8, negative 3. So again, we have the x-axis, and you notice that it starts at negative, gets to the origin, and it becomes positive, just like a number line. And the y, it's negative on the bottom, positive on top. So that's the coordinate plane, or the coordinate grid, or the Cartesian grid. Great job.